we go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
What is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women. That is good.
We're married.
Consider that a divorce.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
See you at the party, Richter.
I have a headache.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
Get to the chopper!
I'll be back. Hasta la vista, baby.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your mission commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, it's our thankful episode, running a little shy of our 22nd of the month usual drop, but we are still thankful for this year, the one, the only Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes, we are thankful for Arnold. Straight away, we're going to kick it up to the satellite. Walker, take it away.
All right. Yes, we're very thankful for Arnold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be doing that all episode long.
I cannot do the voice. So yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the man, the myth, the legend, the bodybuilder, the actor, the Governator.
Yes.
It's a man who has lived life to the fullest. Many careers, many opportunities, many good and maybe not so good movies, but he did it all and he did it his way. And certainly Arnold made a lot of genre films that we're thankful for. He's popped up in pop culture everywhere. Just last night I was watching some show and a character said, "Get to the chopper." So, he shows up when you least expect him to. And we're definitely thankful for Arnold and all of the great things he's contributed to our pop culture. And so Arnold, just a brief bio, as most folks know, Arnold is not from the US, although he has embraced the United States wholeheartedly, but he was born in Austria in 1947 in a very small town. I think it's pronounced Thal. Mm-hmm. Not exactly sure. His father was a police officer. His mother, I think, was a homemaker, and he had an older brother, and they were very strict parents. And, they had plans for him to grow up and probably be a police officer or maybe work in a factory. But Arnold was different. And Arnold has his sights always set a little higher, a little further. And he said that he saw a film in school one day that showed America. And he said there were skyscrapers and these giant bridges and people had new shiny cars and there were movie stars. And that's where he envisioned himself being. He wanted to go to America. He wanted to be a part of all the exciting things that were happening. And he wanted to have a big life like he saw in America. And so he set out how can I do this? How can I get to America? He said people didn't have money. It was after World War II. People were depressed. I mean, he's talked about how a lot of the men at that time had actually been, fighting for the Germans in World War II. They were, a lot of them, alcoholics, depression and other things were rampant. And so he was in an environment that didn't encourage him to think big. So he was like, how am I going to do this? And so one day he finds this muscle magazine, a weightlifting magazine. And he's like, oh, wow, something clicked in his brain. And he's like, I want to do this. I could do this. And just like he did for all the rest of his life, he set his sights on that and he didn't let anything stop him. He just kept working towards that goal. And he became a bodybuilder, a weightlifter. And he connected with different people and found a way to, go on and become, a Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe. He kept earning titles. That was his ticket to the US, He wound up doing jobs like bricklaying with his friend Franco Colombo, and they created a business. And so when he wasn't bodybuilding, he was doing that. He managed to have a pretty good head for business and wound up buying apartment buildings and turning them around and making a profit. So he was doing all these things. And then he started thinking, oh, I would like to be an actor, but I don't want to just be any actor. I want to be the biggest, most successful actor. And everybody said, dude, you look weird. You have a really long, weird name and you have an accent. No one can understand you. But he didn't let that stop him. He, kept pushing and pushing and became this really successful actor. And then he got interested in politics. And we know, we were all in California. You guys are still in California. He wound up becoming the governor for, I think, 8 years. To, some people, you did a good job. Some people, I can't stand Schwarzenegger.
Although I am thankful for Arnold, just for the record, I did not vote for him. But
so, this guy, and he doesn't say he's self-made, which I think is great. He says, nobody's self-made. Everybody needs help from other people and to succeed. But yeah, it's kind of amazing. You look at this guy and you think he had definitely at least 3 strikes against him, but he managed to take all those things that could have been detrimental and turn them into pluses in his career. Just like with Conan, like they said, if Arnold hadn't existed, they would have had to invent him. So what say you, gentlemen, regarding Mr. Schwarzenegger and his amazing success in life?
Whenever I think of Arnold, and he's done it all, he has. When they ask in Conan the Barbarian, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
The women.
The lamentation, the way that he drew it out, just, get to the chopper. Hans and Franz wouldn't exist without Arnold. I wouldn't have the affinity for Lou Ferrigno that I have had I not watched Pumping Iron.
Oh, that's a great one.
Oh, and Arnold was such a shit to Lou.
Yeah, he's not necessarily, this is the thing, I will say, he's not, he's human and he has his failings just like all of us do. And yeah, Pumping Iron is great to watch because it's like he's just playing mind games constantly.
Totally. And the thing is, there's a documentary. It was on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
It's 3 parts, right? The bodybuilding part, the acting part, and then the politics.
Mm-hmm.
And, even before the documentary, that what struck me. Arnold is not a tall man. He's, a regular, he Mr. Olympian body, but he's not, they just made him look bigger than life. In films like Conan and Terminator and those science fiction fantasy films from the 80s.
Yeah, I was
orange crates.
Oh, what's that?
Thank God for those orange crates.
Exactly. I know I was reading a little bit in the bodybuilding stuff, and they listed him officially as 6'2", but a lot of guys were saying, no way, he's 5'10". That they just inflated his height, for all part of the legend.
I've heard that too. More like the 5'10", 6'2", 6'3" on a good day. And I don't know.
I'm more 5'10".
There you go.
I don't
well, 5'10" is...
Put some muscle mass on that frame, Bob, and you...
Well, if we get Bob angry, just watch out.
We had done a podcast palooza at the Silicon Valley Comic-Con, which is no more. They renamed it FanFest, I think. And Arnold was there with some of the people from, I think it was Terminator 2, because the kid was there and some of the other folks. And Arnold was charging, no photo, just an autograph, $800.
Oh.
And I don't know.
The T800.
What's that?
The T800.
Yeah.
My friend Barry, and he always lucks into this crap. He went to that and he posted a picture standing with Arnold Schwarzenegger because he just met him like in a hallway. Oh, there he is. Hey, can we take a picture? Boom. And that was it. Free of charge. Didn't have to pay a bunch of money.
Nice.
And, he's done the same thing with other actors and guests at shows and things. Like they're charging big bucks and he'll just run into them in an elevator or in a hallway or something and
just kind of case the men's room and you'll bump into them eventually.
I was going to say, you could just start roaming the hallways, going up and down in the elevator. Take the elevator.
Yeah, no, I was never really a big Arnold fan. So, I'm kind of riding shotgun on this one. But
so you didn't see any of the Conan movies or Terminator movies at the drive-ins or theaters?
Yeah. Well, I saw like Terminator and Predator, and I saw some of the other genre films you made. I was never into the sword and sorcery stuff, which people will realize if they go back and listen to that episode of ours. But
yeah,
I had that feeling.
Conan and some of those others, not into them. But
so you're not playing D&D in the Monster Garage.
Have never played a game of D&D in my life. So, whatever. Arnold is Arnold. It's like you go see his movies and he's in this movie as a different character, but he's playing Arnold. He's not going to change his personality. He's not going to change his accent. He's not going to change anything. He's Arnold.
Pretty much.
Just like
John Wayne.
Sean Connery will go to Hunt for Red October and play a Russian submarine commander and speak in his Welsh accent. So Arnold's the same way. If you like Arnold, then you'll like his movies. I'm not saying I don't like him, but I'm just not crazy about Arnold. But if I remember correctly, going back to his Governator days, I think it was Gray Davis faced a recall.
Right.
And he was recalled. And then we had like 100 different people trying to be governor, all from all walks of life. And Arnold popped up amongst all those other people.
Yep.
And I think he got it mainly because he had the recognition, he had the face, everyone knew who he was. He ran as a Republican, but he was more middle of the road moderate.
Yeah.
He didn't, and because of that, he was able to walk that line between the Republicans and Democrats. He was able to cross the aisle. He was actually able to get them to work together. He was actually a fairly successful governor at the time. I never went past that. I don't think he could have run for president because he was not born in the United States.
Right.
But he went as far as he could and did pretty well. And I did watch some of his movies over the week, and they vary from film to film. But I'm sure we'll get into all that here in a little bit.
Well, that's one of the interesting things too about his political activity is that again, he sort of just did his own thing. He was Arnold. And so even though he was like, well, I'm a Republican for, these reasons, X, Y, and Z, he might have been fiscally conservative, but then he was also very much into like climate stuff,
He was like fiscally conservative and socially liberal.
Yeah, exactly. So, he promoted all this climate stuff and was doing all that when none of the other Republicans would support that at all. And he's still doing that kind of stuff, So he's sort of just following his own path again, which I can respect because I feel like, part of the problem we have nowadays is it's sort of like, well, you've all got to think this way and do this and, conform to this certain package. Whereas, he's willing to like, well, I believe some of this, I believe some of that. And like you're saying, Bob, he was able to cross the aisle. Now it's like they won't talk to each other at all.
No.
Well, now it's more trying to make the other side look bad than trying to actually do anything good for the country.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because if you look up Arnold on YouTube and look up some of his videos where he's commenting on Trump or he's commenting on politics, they're pretty entertaining, actually. Some are even more entertaining than the movies.
Huh.
Well, and I like that he has come out and talked on certain topics. And, he came out a couple of years ago and talked about fascism and the Nazis and talked about, his father and talked about, they were all broken men. And, he said, look, if you're getting into that stuff, that's a philosophy of, he said, losers. It's a philosophy of losers, but I think it's important that somebody like him who has that background makes those kinds of statements. I mean, we're losing all the people who were, who served in World War II or the Holocaust victims. All those folks are disappearing. So at least somebody who was the child of someone, who saw those kinds of things can get out and speak. And he's not afraid of using his status to speak out on what he believes in. So
that's the thing. If, the people who have lived through World War II and lived through the horrors, they're going. And the next generation, their exposure to the wars are basically movies that romanticize them. So they don't have the horrors in there that people who lived through them did. And I think, obviously Arnold recognized what was going on, remembered, through his parents, what was going on. So, yeah, I mean, that's each generation is going to be more and more diluted as far as that goes.
Exactly.
They're changing textbooks and things, but
one of the things I appreciated was the documentary. They were interviewing him, and he was saying, yeah, it's like a week, 5 days before the election, and one of the papers breaks a story that Arnold touched a woman inappropriately back in the 70s. And they said, well, Arnold, we can spin it this way, we can spin it that way. And he says, no. He says, I touched her inappropriately back in the 70s. I know this woman. He says, and what he told the press is, look, this was the 70s. We touched each other inappropriately. We smoked weed, and, that was the 70s. And I apologize if it offended her and, this, that, and the other, but we touched each other. And he went on to still win. It may not be the brightest moment of his career or his life, but at least he's up front. There was an affair he had with his maid.
Well, I think people value honesty.
And it's
very rare to find that's the last thing you're going to expect honesty from a politician. And here he is, he's admitting, he's telling the truth, he's sorry. Cool, move on. But when they try to cover it up and deny it and everything else, then it just keeps going and keeps snowballing, and yeah, it's just a mess. But so yeah, good for him for just coming out straight and
absolutely
saying what he felt.
Now I will say, he before Conan, he did a Hercules movie, and as Karen had mentioned, his his draw, his enunciation of certain words draw out differently for Arnold. And they dubbed him. It was a pretty bad dub. I can't think of the gentleman's name who did Arnold's lines for that movie, but they wanted this, they wanted Arnold's muscles. It's Hercules.
And they changed his name too. Arnold Strong.
Arnold Strong. And
was this like an Italian film or something, or is this?
No, this was I think it was an American film. You know what? Should probably look it up. But it was Hercules in New York. And it was 1970.
Was it 70? Okay.
Let's see, American fantasy action comedy. So it was an American film. Yeah, it's a pretty horrible dub, though. It's pretty awful.
But Arnold Strong got into the Hollywood milieu at that point.
It got him started, at least.
Thank God for Dino De Laurentiis.
Well, but Dino didn't really want Arnold.
I know.
In Conan. So, I mean, yeah. So it's 1970, he does the Hercules movie, he has a few other little movies. Pumping Iron in 77 gives him a lot of visibility. And then 82, Conan comes along. And the original producer, Ed Pressman, is like, oh, dude, you have to be my Conan. You're it. And then it goes through a couple of different hands, and De Laurentiis comes on as producer, and he's like, I don't want Schwarzenegger. He's a Nazi. He says he's a Nazi. And John Milius is like, no, he's not a Nazi. I'm more of a Nazi than him. He's not a Nazi. And they go through all this stuff, and like Schwarzenegger meets with De Laurentiis, and De Laurentiis is like, your accent is terrible. And he's like, my accent is terrible. Your accent is terrible. But yeah, then he finally concedes to put him in Conan, which, like, it should be a no-brainer, you think. But
well, any idea who De Laurentiis wanted?
That's a really good question. I mean, you think about it now, it's like, who else would you get for that film? I don't know if I've even heard. I mean, I've looked in the Conan book and everything else. I don't know that I've ever seen another person listed. I don't.
Me neither.
Yeah. That's a really good question. Like, who else would you have in mind? I mean, you'd think it would probably be another
bodybuilder. Yeah.
Bodybuilder, but.
All right. Planet 8 No Prize in the comments on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you know who Dino wanted.
It would have to be like Lou Ferrigno or Dolph Lundgren, or who else was around back then?
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, did he want an actor, or did he want an unknown? I mean,
let's get Jack LaLanne.
Buster Crabbe. I'll tell you, I saw Conan at the theaters, and I fell in love with that film. It has a strong beginning, middle, and end.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel, because it's the second time we see Conan, other than in Red Sonja. He's not really playing Conan, but I'll watch, Conan the Destroyer. My biggest regret is that we never got a third King Conan film.
We never got the King Conan. That's one of my biggest, like, unmade movies that I would love to see. But, and like, I don't know, Oliver Stone had all sorts of ideas about what he wanted to make, a three movie thing, but that didn't happen. And Milius had, a 3 movie thing. And the first movie was really like, okay, this is the story we want to tell. But then when they went on to Destroyer, it kind of diluted the whole idea. Not that, I mean, I can watch Destroyer and it's fun, but it's not as good as the first movie. But that first film is really, it's got some very like epic fantasy stuff going on in that with, he's up on the tree of woe, and, then they bring him back to life and they go into the temple with all the camouflage on. And yeah, it's a great fantasy film, sword and sorcery film.
Tragedy of, how he's forced into slavery. He's holding his mother's hand. These stick with me, years later, and they just chop off his mom's head, and he just looks, and the hand lets go, and the body falls, and he's just, and off he goes, and that, is part of what drives that character, and the people that he finds, and the wizard. I can't think of the actor's name, but he's fantastic.
Mako.
Yeah. James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
What was it? Methuselah Doom?
Thulsa Doom.
Thulsa Doom. And the music is just dun 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 dun.
That's a great soundtrack by Basil Polidoros.
It is. And not to take away from like actors like Sean Connery or Bill Shatner, they're strong actors. They build a character, and whether it's the system or the audience or what, but they're typecast to forever play a spy or a captain or a spaceman. Or I give it to Arnold. He's not the strongest actor. He's not the best actor, but he has played many different types of characters, some successfully, some not so successfully. But I give the guy, that ability to break that mold. So after Conan, what film did you guys discover Arnold acting in?
Well, the next was The Terminator.
The Terminator. And James Cameron, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like a film noir, the way that science fiction, and this was one of Cameron's, if not his first film also.
Very close to his first. And the thing is, he didn't want Arnold for the movie. And Arnold was actually going up for the Michael Biehn role. Because he already had the guy who played Bishop, he was going to have him play the Terminator. But then when he sat down with Arnold and they started talking, Arnold was clearly more interested in the Terminator character. And he's like, this guy, whoever plays the Terminator, he should walk like this, and he should always look like this. And so he was like, geez, Cameron's like, this guy, he's really got a lot of ideas for this character, and then he eventually goes back to him and has him, maybe you should be the Terminator. It worked out, even though it went against the original concept. Was like, oh, well, the Terminator could blend into a crowd, and he could Arnold is not going to blend into a crowd. So that concept just disappeared. But it's probably his most, it's like his trademark role, probably, right? Being the Terminator. Even though, you could say, well, maybe Conan, but most people will probably think of the Terminator before Conan. And he's got so many great lines from Terminator.
He spoke so little in Terminator, but it really was a the Stan Winston effects with the direction of Cameron and Schwarzenegger. They would have conversations where the line "I'll be back." Cameron was like, "I will be back,"
mm-hmm.
and or Arnold was like, "I will be back." Well, and just Cameron's like, "No, I'll be back," and he tells Arnold, "Look, you do the acting, I'll do the writing, and we'll meet somewhere in between." So Arnold's like, "Okay." So he did, and he says, "Well, I'll be damned, it worked. I'll be back."
I'll be back.
And it's fantastic because Arnold kind of does this.
Yeah, he looks around.
I'll be back.
Yep.
Well, I think it's the old stereotype of like cybernetic beings or robots, whatever, would not use contractions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You use contractions and it makes you look a little more human, but no, it did work in the movie. That and, come with me if you want to survive.
You know what's funny and scary is that Jasmine uses AI for, like, she's a teacher. And so there is a program that can spot AI if a student uses it for writing or stuff, because of the punctuation, lack of punctuation, contractions. And I'm like, holy crap, it's really starting to happen. This is how, and it's not Skynet, but we are all linked into GPS. If you want to tell Siri to tell you to, or Alexa or Google, if they have a damn robot skeleton somewhere and they're putting AI in it,
game over, man.
I don't know if you can do it with the new GPS units and things, but when they used to have like the Garmin, you used to be able to download Arnold's voice. The light, yeah, it's just like,
I said break now.
That first Terminator movie, I think is well, I think it's the best Terminator movie. I know a lot of people like Terminator 2 better because it's bigger and glitzier. There's a lot more money dropped into it. But that first Terminator movie is just so, I don't know, it's so punk rock. It's so like down and dirty, and it really feels like Sarah Connor's really in trouble. I mean, she's really in trouble. And Arnold is so menacing in it. I like him better as the menacing Terminator than as like the teddy bear Terminator. He's really coming after her. Nothing is going to stop him. Even after, all the skin is ripped off and he's just the metal skeleton. It's like nothing is going to stop him. And that film, I like it a lot better than Terminator 2. There's things I like in Terminator 2, but it also gets kind of schmaltzy. Like I almost feel like, Steven Spielberg could have made this movie. It's like the ending.
Like Spielberg could make it.
The ending with the kid, and he's like, oh, I know why you cry, but it's something I can never do. And it's just like, oh, geez, I don't know. It just kind of bugs me. So, yeah, I much prefer the first Terminator.
I prefer the first Terminator as well. To me, it's kind of like two different movies, like Alien and Aliens. The second,
and the same dude involved.
Right. More action, more glitz, like you said, more money, more kung fu and dynamite in the vernacular.
There you go.
Like Star Trek and Star Trek 2.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Okay, we have got to give it to him.
Yeah, that's true. But I can like them both in different ways and appreciate them in different ways. Arnold was given way more to do, way more lines in the second Terminator film. And I don't know if it was a trailer or what, but the introduction of Arnold as the good Terminator was spoiled. I saw somewhere at the convention or something. Otherwise, that would have been such a good movie, because you're like, oh no, he's gonna kill the kid. He's got the roses and the rifle.
Yeah, it did get spoiled, and I guess we just barely had the internet then. What was that, 96, 94? Let's see, when was, oh no, I'm way off. Terminator 2 was, I got my list here. What the heck? Where is Terminator 2 on the list? Holy cow, people. Did I leave it off the list?
We should not have spoke bad of Skynet. There goes all our lists.
91.
Terminator 2 also is, that was like a big leap ahead on CGI. All the liquid metal type effects and walking through the bars and, turning his head by morphing his face on which side the head's on. And getting shot, and you see this big bloop of metal, and then it forms back into his face and things. that just amazed people because I think that was pretty much the first movie where that was done to any big extent, or to the extent that it was.
Yep, definitely.
Turning his arm into a big dagger, things like that. It's like, that was a huge leap ahead for CGI and special effects.
Definitely. One of the things I like too, one of the lines that carries over from film to film, come with me if you want to live. Okay.
Nah, I think I'll just stay here.
Were you gonna say something, Walker?
No, I didn't think you were done with your thought on that.
No, I'm good.
Well, this is one of the things that I think at first started out to be kind of cool and then got to be way overused, is that Arnold started making little funny quips in his movie. So, he would be like, hey, hang around or stick around. Like he throws the knife in the guy in Commando and he's stuck in it. Stick around, and he would make these quips, right? And it's kind of funny. But then after a while, it seemed like every movie there had to be excuses for him to like make the quips, like throw a line in. And it's like there was, there were too many of the cutesy catchphrases and stuff. Like we got to inject too much humor into it.
Well, I think that all kind of started with the Bond films. And, Bond would, like, which one was it? The opening of, I think it was, the Twice or Thunderball, I think. And it's like, yeah, he had little one-liners, usually a lot in the credits, but for the opening scenes. But yeah, as it went on, especially with like Roger Moore, of a lot of one-liners, and that kind of became sort of the Bond trademark. But then other films started picking it up, like the Arnold films. And I was going to bring that up during Running Man, because if you watch Running Man, I think, I didn't read this. This is just my thoughts. It seems like they shot the movie and then they looked at it and said, you know what? We need some one-liners. So in all the scenes where something happens and then it cuts back to Arnold, he has a little one-liner. He's always just like single shot of him with like a smoky background. So it looks like he just went back later in front of a smoky background and did all these little one-liners, and they put it back in the film. Yeah, and it's just because it really stands out in Running Man that, that, okay, here comes a one-liner. They're back to that shot again.
Oh my God. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I really wouldn't, because I could see them, running the movie saying, oh my gosh, or Arnold being like, I should have something to say here. I should have something funny.
Where's my humor?
Right. What if I said something like, oh, was that shocking? Or, I could see him doing that because he became really fond of the quips, but I do think it kind of hurt him over time because he became, well, then you get to something like Batman and Robin, which was just, Arnold, I love you, but Batman and Robin, that was pretty poor.
Even Clint Eastwood fell into that because he always had to have his "make my day" or whatever liner,
right,
in his films. But
I think it happens to these guys because they find something that the audiences find appealing. Like, oh, the audience like that. Let's do that, but let's do that like 10 times more.
Verhoeven kind of nailed it as a parody in RoboCop with that one guy. I'll buy that for $1. So out of context, like, what the hell does that mean? But he kept on, they zoom in on him. Everyone's like, hee. It's like,
well, speaking of Running Man, do you know who directed Running Man?
Oh, gosh,
Michael Glazer.
That's right. TV dude.
Starsky and Hutch. I guess while David Soul was off doing like Salem's Lot, singing ballads on records and things, Michael Glazer went and directed Running Man.
He learned how to direct. Running Man is an interesting film. I think it doesn't get its due. I think, you know, it's kind of mid-range. It's an interesting concept. They bringing in Richard Dawson, I think was really masterful. I think that was really smart.
Everybody loved Richard at that point.
And
I can never see him as anything other than Newkirk.
Well,
Newkirk's in this movie. Yeah.
He did so much Family Feud, though. I think you know, like coming home from school, it seemed like Family Feud would be on, and he'd be doing that, always trying to kiss all the women.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, I think there's things they probably could have handled better. A lot of the battles and stuff seemed a little, I don't know. Some of them were exciting and some of them were kind of lame. But and anytime you see something like that with like Schwarzenegger is supposed to be sort of just the Joe Blow normal guy. It's like, well, the Joe Blow normal guy isn't like built like a Greek god, right? I mean, it's just, it's kind of bizarre. Now, I heard a rumor that they might be doing a remake, doing another version, and I think they were talking about Simon Pegg being the main character, which that would be kind of interesting to have.
Like Mark Wahlberg or something.
There's probably been numerous versions talked about. But I mean, it's actually, it's an, oh, I don't want to fight that guy.
No way.
That's the thing. It's like, you're not surprised when Arnold beats the crap out of somebody.
Right. So it's sort of a
the Body Ventura was in that film too, right?
Yeah. You know, Running Man. Yeah. They had a lot of the bodybuilders that were in Predator.
Yeah.
Film.
And of course, Predator, I think, was the same year. Yeah, Predator and Running Man were both 87. Yeah. And I mean, Predator's a far superior film to Running Man. Predator's an awesome film, and I think we voted it into our top 10 sci-fi films.
Yeah,
I think
that is right.
Larry had it very high on his list, and so
I don't want people to think we're glossing over Predator, but we did cover that in a previous podcast.
Right.
We did cover it. So we don't have to say a ton about Predator. But I mean, great cast for Arnold to work with, you know, Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura, Carl Weathers, etc. Right. So great cast. Another great soundtrack, great production values. And they made the great decision of scrapping the original Alien and bringing in the Stan Winston crew to design that iconic Predator look that we got. So
I mentioned him before. That was Dolph Lundgren, right? That was supposed to be the Predator.
No, the karate guy, Van Damme. Yeah,
Van Damme.
And he was damned.
There's footage on YouTube of Van Damme in this like styrofoam kind of costume.
He looks like a red ant. It does. It just looks terrible. It looks dreadful.
He nailed it. He does.
It's just awful. So it's good that somebody. Well, that's the thing with like so many of these films, right? You know, or really a film that turns out shit. If somebody had made a decision, maybe it could have been a really good movie. You just never know, right? I think that Predator to me is, like, of all of Arnold's films, that's the one I like the most. And it's probably all those factors. Plus, I think he does the best job in it, to be honest. I think he's like really, he has a few of his quips, you know, but he does a really good job of, like, at times he's, you know, the action guy, but at times he's like confused and scared, and, you know, he's not just constantly Mr. Action Guy quipping in it.
Well, that's where he most fits the role too, because he's not like an everyday man who gets caught in a situation. He's an elite commando with all these other guys. And
good point.
They would be buffed out bodybuilder types.
That's a good
Plus,
point.
it's like, you know, he's going up against this Predator that's stronger than he is and faster than he is and has more tools to his belt. So yeah, I mean, you can believe he's in peril at that point. You don't expect him to go up and just start beating the crap out of the Predator.
That movie is also kind of breaks my heart that we never got Arnold to come back and play Dutch again.
Yeah.
They're still making the movies, so who knows?
There had been some stories put together out there with like, a younger soldier going and finding Dutch and, saying, "Hey, I need your help." But I think none of them ever appealed to Schwarzenegger, or maybe they didn't have the money to bring him in. Because I mean, he's demands a pretty, well, I don't know if he still demands a pretty whopping salary, but at one point in time, you're going to be paying Schwarzenegger like $20 million to be in your movie. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've talked about my ideas for the sequel back when we covered Predator. So if you want to find out what I thought, go back and check that episode out. Let's go ahead and move forward because we're running out of time here, people.
Well, I think the one big genre film of his that we haven't talked about, you mentioned Paul Verhoeven, is 1990s Total Recall, which is just ape shit. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Like the best of the ones I watched this week.
Really? It's so bananas. There's parts of it that are interesting, but overall, it just seems like it's so completely nuts. Now, I know some people have said that the whole thing is pretty much a dream, that he never really goes to Mars. He's just plugged into the machine. I mean, you could watch it that way and see like, oh, does he ever really like go to Mars and do all that stuff? Or is he still in the machine when he first goes to the recall place? I don't know. Maybe that's a viable.
Although I think it's a cool twist, though, the fact that he keeps thinking of Mars. He is obsessing on Mars. And so he wants to go to this place that will send him on a vacation by implanting all the memories of the vacation in his head. And then it turns out that they were already his memories, and he was a, detective and all that on Mars, and he did all this stuff. And it's like, okay, this just brought back his memories. I thought that was a pretty cool twist.
Well, and that his personality, the person he was all fake, and his real personality was a pretty awful person. So, yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, one of the things Verhoeven with has nothing to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but with RoboCop, there's a line where he says, "I can't remember them, but I can feel them," when he talks about his family. That there are just some things that, transcend our memory, whether it's the soul or the heart or whatever. And so with Total Recall, it was kind of like that drive, that desire, the whole thing about Mars. And then, the Rebel Alliance or whatever was working on there, and he became part of that. Because you made a good point too, Walker. He was a very bad man before they did the switch, and he was the one that wanted to do the switch, and he talked with his, bad guy friend to switch things over, and he had a terrible wife too. Oh my God. But I don't know. I think it's a really fun science fiction movie in a different way than Terminator. Terminator to me wasn't really science fiction so much of like a film noir. I mean, borderline horror. Some of the characters are very messy and gory. It's a very strong rated R film. Just Arnold, operating on his eye and it's gruesome. So one of the things with Total Recall that I like is when he dresses up in that costume as the woman. And, they're like, well, what are you?
Starts glitching. But it's also nonsensical. It's so weird. It's like, why is he's in this like robot costume of that woman, and then it like opens up, and it's and then the head turns into a bomb, and it's like
That reminded me of like Peter Sellers. That was like a Peter Sellers costume, maybe an homage. Professor Balls, gave him a pirate outfit, and there's always like dynamite or something involved in that too. But anyway, they tried to remake
because
that.
it was so nutty is why I probably liked it.
What's that?
I think maybe because it was so nutty is why I liked it.
Oh yeah, hey, I mean, what's the one they did with Bruce Willis? Fifth Element.
The Fifth Element.
I love the Fifth Element.
Pretty crackers too.
Yeah, it is, but I like it. And you know what I say? You like something, like it, no matter what anybody else tells you. Batman versus Superman.
Every episode.
Yeah.
Hey. So, although it's not a genre film, we're thankful for Arnold. I did watch Kindergarten Cop.
I did too.
Line. Kids concerned. It's a tumor. It's a tumor. It's not a tumor. I didn't have time to watch Twins. And I've never seen Arnold's Christmas movie with Sinbad.
You've never seen Jingle All the Way?
All the Way.
It's amusing.
I ran out of time.
It's amusing. You should catch it during the holidays. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
I do feel like, the remaining Terminator films are pretty. Yeah, Terminator 3 wasn't terrible. It was okay. But then as you go along, it's sort of like trying to squeeze, wine from a sponge. I don't know. I don't have a good analogy there, guys. It just gets worse and worse. Yeah,
I think I pretty much stopped after 3.
Yeah. I mean, I
watched them, but it was just sad.
Yeah, I saw Genesis and I saw Dark Fate. It's like there's like little bits of things in them that are interesting, but as a whole, not so good, which is too bad. And I know he's done a bunch of other stuff. The Expendables movies I haven't really been watching. Yeah.
I don't recall the name of the movie, but it was right after he left the position of governor, and he played a sheriff in a small town.
That was pretty good.
This guy was going to run drugs through the town, and sheriff's, over my dead back, basically. And so mayhem ensues. And Arnold, flies through a window or drops from a second floor or something like that. And they're like, "Sheriff, how do you feel?" And he looks to the camera. "I feel old."
I think that was The Last Stand. Yeah, that was not bad. It's not bad.
It was fun. I feel old.
I feel old.
Tell my wife that. How do you feel? I feel old.
But how many people have he's got at least 5 or 6 really entertaining genre films. So,
well, that's what I was saying. I mean, these really big, oh God, I can't think of his name right now. He was in Vertigo and let's move on and I'll think of his name. But
well, I'll move on to something, and then if you think of Jimmy Stewart, there you go.
Many different roles. He was an actor's actor, and I really applaud Arnold for Jingle All the Way, whether it was good or bad, whether Kindergarten Cop was good or bad, Total Recall. People are going to love it. People are going to hate it. Being a parody in Saturday Night Live, how many people can say that skits were built around, them as a character? Wayne's World is Wayne's World. It's not based on, maybe it's based on his cousin or something like that. But Hans and Franz, and they, played the heck out of Hans and Franz. He's just, there was a restaurant that he and Bruce Willis, what was the Planet Hollywood?
Planet Hollywood.
I mean, the guy, he yeah. Anyway, I'm thankful for you, Arnold.
Well, before we step off,
Yes.
I've got to do this. The Arnold Charlton Heston connection. Now, it's been well documented by somebody that Arnold admired Charlton Heston, but I find it interesting that he almost followed in the footsteps of Charlton Heston in that he almost made a version of I Am Legend, which Charlton Heston made the Omega Man from the same material. So in 97, Ridley Scott signed on to direct a version of I Am Legend that was going to take place in a post-apocalyptic 21st century in San Francisco. They were going to have the creatures were going to be more like vampiric mutants like we saw in the Omega Man. And so the studio was looking at Tom Cruise, Michael Douglas, Mel Gibson, maybe to star in it. But Ridley Scott wanted Arnold to be Robert Neville in this movie. And he felt that the movie would reinvent Arnold and show him not only with his affinity for action roles, but also give him a chance to showcase his, I'm not making this up, showcase his dramatic capabilities. Okay. But the budget.
That's where it all fell apart.
Well, the budget started growing. I mean, you bring Arnold on board again, the budget grows a lot, and it grew to 108 million. And Warner Brothers was like, nah, don't think so. And so eventually, that's how we got the Will Smith movie, I think, in 2007. The second instance of the Heston Schwarzenegger connection is that Arnold almost made a Planet of the Apes film. So 20th Century Fox in 1993, they were looking at rebooting Planet of the Apes, and they were going to make this movie called Return of the Apes. And so at first, Fox had hired Oliver Stone, okay, to produce this film, and they hired Terry Hayes to write a script. Hayes had written the Mad Max sequels, okay? And so this is a pretty crazy story. It was going to involve these two geneticists, these two genetic scientists, one of whom was going to be Arnold. So that's already pushing credibility right there, okay? And these scientists were trying to figure out the origins of this plague, which was causing babies to be born old. And the babies would be born old and die. And so the human race was going to be extinct because the babies were dying, right? And so it just gets really crazy. And so the geneticists figured out that this plague was caused by something that had been introduced into the human genome back in the Stone Age. So Arnold, as one of the geneticists, figures out a way to time travel by going into a deprivation tank, like in Altered States. Yeah. Somehow he can time travel. So he does this, and he travels back to the Stone Age, and he discovers that the planet is ruled by intelligent apes, and humans are fighting these intelligent apes, right? I'm not making any of this up. This was actually a script they were working on. And so he starts working with the prehistoric humans, who a lot of them have names taken from the Lord of the Rings for some reason. I don't know why. One of the rebel humans is named Aragorn. Just go with us. So anyway, he starts working with them. He helps invent gunpowder. They start fighting the apes, and they try to find a way to prevent them. The apes are going to inject people with this thing to kill them off. Anyway, you can look it up. It's online. You can find this script. But apparently one of the issues they had with this particular script, there was a Fox executive who wanted to put more humor into the story. And he was very interested in having the apes play baseball. Not kidding. Anyway, all the different people involved just couldn't work it out. Arnold left the project. And then, of course, later on, we got the Mark Wahlberg movie from a totally different script. But so we came close to getting those two films. Personally, I would like to have seen the Omega Man one. I don't really think the apes one sound that great, but
but the podcast we could have made on that.
the things we could have said about that. Oh my Lord. So yeah, interesting that, maybe he might have made those films.
What could have been.
Yeah.
You should send us the link to that script, and when we do the Tim Burton Planet episode, we can maybe work that in and kind of go a little more into the script and then go into because what's there to say about Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes?
Yeah, or I don't even know, because then I would have to watch Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. So maybe we could skip that one
when we do the episode. But Frank, give him the script, and we'll all discuss it.
Well, this draws our thankful for, Walker and I thankful for Arnold. Bob, for Arnold.
Putting up with Arnold.
Tolerating Arnold.
We all have those episodes.
Makes for a good episode. Hey, kids, it's time for our censor sweep. Junk that we have that we're thankful for. I mean,
we're thankful for our junk? What?
Fun items, for our junk. Who'd like to kick it off? Maybe Waki.
Okay. I have two things that are very episode specific. Two books.
Very good.
First book I have is Arnold's Be Useful, 7 Tools for Life. Years ago, he only had 5 tools. And I saw his speech. He made a commencement speech about 5 rules for life. It was actually really good. It helped me at a time when I was trying to get something going at work. And I will say he's actually a pretty good inspirational speaker, so I recommend him. But this is the granddaddy, the Conan the Barbarian official story of the film book.
For those of you not on YouTube, jump on YouTube so you can check out this cool stuff we're showing you.
It's a honking big book, beautiful book that has all sorts of pictures. You can't see it because I have a fake background, but it's a wonderful book that tells the story of how the Conan film was made. It has full page pictures, and it is by John Walsh and highly recommended by Crom. I say go out and get yours now.
Nice. Bob.
Yes.
What you got for us, buddy?
I only got one little thing, but
just a little.
When I was at Monsterpalooza, I was walking around the dealer's room, looking around, and suddenly I came across one booth. I looked up and I saw this item up there. I said, that's interesting. And then I walked about halfway down the aisle and thought, that's really interesting. I need to own that. So I went back, and the legs are all over the place here. So let me get it all set. From Johnny Quest, the robot spy. There he is.
Ooh.
Big robot spider from Robot Spy.
Nice.
I think it's got like a 16-inch width to it.
Wow.
Another one, smaller one, but size does matter, kids. So I had to get the big one.
Never think smaller.
It wasn't bad. It was like $60 or something. But
cool.
It's not going to stand up. It's basically 3D printed, and I think you can find them on eBay. He 3D prints these things, and it looks mighty impressive. Basically, for lack of anywhere else to put it, it stands on top of my microwave.
Oh, we're getting to that point, huh?
Well, for non-Japanese things. With the Japanese stuff, I can always keep cramming stuff closer together and find a little space and stick something in. But, for something like this, since it's so wide and spindly and whatever, it's hard to find a shelf space for it. So it rests atop my microwave. So Dr. Zinn knows what I'm cooking on any different.
He's watching.
Well, not on my microwave, but in with my cutlery set.
Ah!
Dun, 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 dun. Very, very nice. Larry is showing us the Conan sword. Now, is that, I can't remember, is that the sword his dad made, or is that the Atlantean sword?
This is the Atlantean sword.
Okay.
They do have his dad's sword also.
Nice.
Get me to the dagger.
You go on YouTube and you just start typing in, Conan swords and Atlantean swords, and it'll pop up. And it's not that expensive either. It's probably $75. Well, when I got it, I don't know.
So, like, if somebody breaks into your house, could you use that as a form of self-defense?
Yeah, you could. It's not like sharp, like, you can't cut a piece of bread with it, but you could certainly poke a watermelon. It's sharp. I wouldn't take it LARPing. I'll put it to you that way.
You could poke a skull with it, right?
You could, if the skull's not moving around, if it's just laying there, you could crack it open. Not that I would do that, though.
So if anyone's thinking of breaking into Larry's house, just be aware he's got a Conan sword. So
no pistols,
I have a
slingshots, a
samurai
lightsaber.
replica of Kill Bill's sword. And that's a real, actual, sharp samurai sword.
Wow.
And then I've got a machete next to my bed I can use. But yeah.
I could take it in and get it sharpened, but I choose to just display it instead.
Hey, you never know.
Just as a quick additional item, they reprinted Superman versus Muhammad Ali. You see Batman down there in the audience, and even the back cover. I mean, this could be like a poster, and it's the original story they had back in the 70s when the thing first came out. But I saw
Neil Adams.
What's that?
Oh, it's Neil Adams' artwork.
Yes, I was going to say Neil Adams did fine work. Support your local comic shops, kid. We all have local shops. You don't have to have a monthly subscription because God knows that'll cost you an arm and a leg. But go, support the brick and mortars if you can.
It does, and I tell my comic shop, anything Godzilla and Ultraman, throw it in my bin. And some weeks I'll go there and it's like, okay, $110. Wait, what? I did find out I was getting duped too, because I think it was DC was putting Godzilla on all its covers.
Oh no.
The story had nothing to do with Godzilla. They were just special covers with Godzilla on them.
Yeah.
I don't need these. But I didn't realize that until I bought them. So
they do that.
That's funny. All right, my friends. Well, not only are we thankful for Arnold, but we're also thankful for each and every one of you. We're getting close to our 150th episode. So end of December, we got some fantastic stuff coming your way. We've been doing this for a while, and we appreciate you guys who've been with us from the very beginning, and those of you that have joined along the way. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Who knows? We may find our way to Blue Sky and Threads and who knows what. But for right now, that's where our footprints are. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Until we meet again, this is Planet 8 signing out. Live long and prosper. And get to the chopper!
Ooh!
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.